there any questions that we wanted to see to go over from the short right? If not, I wanted to mention that those of you that have not finished your test, your Unit 8 test, you have until the morning of May 22nd, which is when we're taking our next test. So if you have not finished your test, by then I'm grading it as is. And then this is really for everyone except seniors because you have a different date. The last day, and I haven't put this on the board yet, but for all retakes, all missing work is June 8th. After that, your grade is whatever it'll be after the final. Okay? So make sure you keep that in mind. I'll be putting that on the announcements and things like that. This is the 4th review lesson of our Unit 9. So today we're doing compound inequalities. I'm going to give you the definitions again, and then we can go through whatever questions you want to see. You go over reviews. So make sure you have this written down. That compound inequalities are two inequalities or more joined together with and or. Or inequalities have a tendency to graph apart, so they'll be facing opposite directions. If this was the example, like we solved it and this is the answer we got, we would graph them both separately. This would be a closed circle because it has the line underneath going to the left. This would be an open circle because it doesn't have the line underneath going to the right. The interval notation you could write, but this time around, as long as you know one of them, this or this, it doesn't matter which one you put it in. Once you have that written down, look at numbers 1 through, I think it's 5 on that page. Find any you want to see, go over, review. Three, 5. Anyone still writing this down? With our OR inequalities, we have to solve them as two separate inequalities. So the rules for solving is the same. The only difference is it's an inequality, not an equation, so no equals. And then if that happens here, if we're dividing or multiplying by a negative on both sides, the sign changes direction. So let's start with 3. Solve this one separately from what you do over here. So get x by itself, subtract 9. Divide both sides by 2. Solve the other side. If you get something that's has 0, you can keep going. Divide both sides. Make sure your final answer, you can either write it so that it goes left to right or leave it as is, but with or in between. So you know that's the final answer. And then you can graph them both. These would both be open circles because they don't have equal to. So x is less than 0 is everything below 0. X is greater than 4 is everything above 4. If you wanted to write the interval notation, it would start at negative infinity. It would end at 0. It's not a closed circle, so parentheses. Because there's 2 parts, you have to put the u in between it. I'm sorry, that was for put 4. And then it starts again at 4, again not closed, and it ends at infinity. Again, you don't have to put that part, but for practice, it would be good. You don't have to write this.
How do you know if it's an open or a closed circle?
You can look at the symbol. If it has a line, that's closed. If it doesn't have a line, it's open. Other questions on 3? Five. How would we start solving this one?
Multiply.
Multiply what?
-3 by 2 and 1.
We have negative 6x minus 3 is less than negative 15. Because I didn't multiply on both sides, I'm not changing the sign. But then I can keep going. Add 3 to both sides. Divide by negative 6. Here, because we're dividing by a negative on both sides, the sign must switch. Right. And then solving the other one, what would we do first?
You add 1.
Subtract 1 because it's positive. And then, how would we get x by some? Oh, what's going to happen when we do that? So again, if you want to write it in order where whichever one is pointing to the left comes first, you can do that. It's not necessary. So negative 4 would be open or closed? Closed because of the equal to. Going to the left, 2 would be open. Going to the right. If you wanted to know the interval notation, again, it starts at negative infinity, it ends at negative 4. That is closed, so square bracket. And then parentheses to infinity. Are there any other examples on this page you want to see, do, go over?
So why is that one red?
Because this one is closed. If no other questions on this page, go to the next. go ahead and write this down. So remember that and or inequalities are opposites. If or inequalities have a tendency to graph apart, and inequalities have a tendency to graph together. If you've got some answer like this, x is greater than or equal to -6, that would really look like this. X is less than or equal to 1, would look like this. And you're looking for where they overlap, which happens to be this line. Interval notation is from the starting point to the ending point. So in this case, they were both closed, so both brackets, -6, 1. And then because there are two endpoints, they're usually rewritten more condensed. So instead of two separate things like this, this should look familiar from when we were doing domain and range. So always less than or equal to, lowest number always goes first, x in between.
You just show the or part, right?
On the last page.
No, the other one, the one.
So this would be if I drew these exactly how they are, but you're looking for where they overlap. Once you're finished writing that down, look on this page and find any you want to see. Do your go over and review. We got 7. Any others? 9. Right. Let's start with 7. Our goal here is to still solve for x by itself, but whatever we do to one piece, we're doing it to everything, unlike 4. So here, we could get rid of the 13 first by adding it, but we're going to add it everywhere so that it cancels in the middle and it gets pushed to the outsides. And then to get x by itself, you're going to divide everything by 7. And then to graph that, you would start at the lowest, so -2. This is less than, so it's open. End at 3, which is also open, and draw a line in between. If you wanted to write the interval notation, these are both open, so both parentheses, -2, 3. What questions do we have on that one? For 9, what would be our first step? Subtract 1, always the opposite. To everywhere. We have -2 is less than 2 over 3x is less than or equal to 4. And then how would I get rid of the 2/3? You could do a couple things. If you want to do it all at once, you would take this and flip it and multiply it everywhere. Or you can multiply everything by 3 and then divide by 2, making it 2 steps instead of 1. Start multiplying those. Tell me what numbers you get. For the first one, -3. And the second? So this would be open, the -3. This would be closed, the 6. So the interval notation would be parenthesis, bracket. What question do we have on that? Right. 10, there are multiple ways to solve it. What do you think we would do first?
Multiply by 2.
Okay, you do that. Then it becomes just like the others. Get rid of 12 by adding. Get rid of the 2 by dividing it. It's going to look very similar to the last problem. Starts off open circle, ends with closed, or starts off parenthesis, ends with bracket. What questions do we have about that one? On the very last page, are there any we want to see, do, go over, review? Okay. So then for the rest of class, you have time to practice this. Go back and do Khan Academy, Unit 8, the ones on the board. If you're going back to do this Khan Academy, remember that you should draw number lines at the end. And is always going to overlap, or you're looking at everything entirely. So draw number lines because that will definitely help you if you go back to do that one. If you want to work on retake work or finish your test, come see me.